Hey guys, welcome back. So I said I was going to do a video on some threads, the differences between cheap threads and good threads. So let's start off with the cheapest one. So you can get these online at like cheap, like AliExpress and stuff like that. And these are the cheapest threads that you can pretty much get. I don't personally use them. I got this as like a little gift thing when I bought something. And it's a polyester thread, and it is quite low quality, so it will snap easily, but you do get a variety of colours. So maybe if you're experimenting and learning to sew things, this type of thread would be fine, and it would also teach you what the differences are between good and bad thread. So with this cheap thread, you can see it's a little bit frayed, if that makes sense. I'm not sure if the camera can pick it up, but it's slightly frayed at the ends. That means it's really easily broken. So I, snap that thread with little to no effort, and it will leave the end of the thread all like unspun and everything. So it's really not worth using cheap thread when sewing things that need to have a bit of strength in it, because you saw exactly how easy that was to snap off. So yeah, I mean, it's good for when you're learning, like I said. If you wanted to know, how to learn ladder stitch or just stitching in general, this would be fine. Any sort of craft thing, definitely use it. There's no point throwing it out, but I probably would never use this thread just because it snaps so easily. Alright, moving on to the next one, and this is just some cheapy thread, a little bit more expensive than the last one that I've shown, that you can get in your local craft stores. It's not any particular brand. I've had it lying around. I sometimes use this because it's good when doing smaller bits, but again, I don't make it my main thread that I use. It comes in this little spool, which is great if you want to use it on a sewing machine as well. Using these things on a sewing machine will strengthen it because it's not going to have that much tension as when you're hand sewing. So you can see with the cheaper threads, as I was running it through my hands, it tends to knot really easily, and that's a problem that I've found with cheap threads. Not that I've really used it much, but when I have played around with it, I found that they knot so easily, especially when you're using faux fur. The little fur fibers get stuck in the thread and they just knot, and it is unfixable. So that's also something to note if you have some cheap thread around. And you can see how it was a little bit stronger than that last thread, so I applied a little bit more pressure, but it still snapped. So any good thread like that won't snap it that easily. And you really don't want your thread to snap when you're halfway sewing, a leg or something, and then it snaps and then you have to go back and re-sew everything. So also something to note. So the thread that I actually use is Gutmann brand, and it is made in Germany, and this is the best thread that you could possibly get here in Australia anyway. So you can get it in different sizes. So this is the large 1000 meter size, and I just get it from my local craft store, and it comes in a range of different sizes and different threads as well. So this is just an all-purpose thread, and it is, you can see how different the spool is. So if you want to put that on a sewing machine, that will be more rigid and will be more sturdy as well, as opposed to that little tube. And the strength test, you can see I can't snap it, and I'm pulling a hard amount of pressure and it won't snap. So definitely you can see the difference straight away with a more expensive thread, and it is so worth it, trust me. And this is also a polyester thread, 100% polyester, as you can see on the little spool there. And the little sewing needles that I use is, I prefer to use a large eyelet. You can get smaller eyelets. It doesn't really make a difference in my opinion when you're sewing faux furs. It would if you're sewing a fabric because it leaves bigger holes, but when you're sewing faux furs, all that sort of stuff is hidden, so it doesn't really matter how big the eyelet you have. So I prefer to use the larger eyelet, and it's the point is a little bit blunter as well, so I am prone to stabbing myself with needles. So having that blunter eyelet is great. And another sewing needle you can use is this round one. I don't really use it that much, only when I'm doing hard fabrics that I will use things like this. It just means you can force the needle to go around a little bit easier than the straight one, but I don't use it very often. I don't really like the way it works. It's not really for me. And you can find a whole different range of needles in your local craft store, so you can find them anywhere. They're so readily available. Now, if you're looking for something a little bit stronger, I would recommend using some upholstery thread. You can get this from like specialty craft stores or like haberdashery stores. I've just had this one around, which is really great if you're doing harder materials like faux leather or something like that, and you want a bit more strength, and that way it won't snap. So I'll just show you the comparison of a normal thread, the Gutermann thread, with the upholstery thread, and you can see it's like pretty much double the size of the normal thread that I use. That means it will be a lot stronger and won't be prone to snapping like some of the cheaper threads are. And this is like woven polyester as well, so it's like kind of double woven on itself. And it's thicker and it's like impossible to break. So if I pulled anymore, I'd probably like sever my finger off. So it's impossible to break. So if you want something really, really strong like that, definitely try and find some upholstery thread. I know in Australia you might be able to find it in Spotlight in like the upholstery section where they have like couch material and stuff like that. They might have some upholstery thread there. And the good thing about this one as well is it's really easily able to thread it through any sort of eyelet because it is a bit more stiffer, so you can kind of force it through that eyelet. If you have trouble threading things through needles, this thread won't cause you any trouble either. And I've only really used this thread once on my Drogon doll because it was like a faux leather, so I wanted something a bit more stable and a bit heavier as well, so I went with that thread. And you can also use pretty much anything for other threads. You can use this cotton thing. It's like a more of a decoration type thread, so if you want to add like little patchwork things or something like that, you could use a little cotton thread like this. I wouldn't really recommend using it for sewing dolls together just because it is quite weak. It's a lot weaker than the cheap thread even, so you can apply pretty much little to no pressure on it, and you can see it's a little bit thicker as well. It's a lot thicker than just some regular thread. That's why it's good for any patterns or anything like that you want to do, like embroidery and stuff. So you can see I'm going to do the tug test, and it's so easy to pull apart just because it's not really a thread, it's more like a string, I guess. But yeah, good for patterns and embroidery and stuff like that. And again, you can find this at a local craft store. It's not really a specialty item. You could even find it online as just like thin string or something like that. I think I got mine from a Spotlight store or even Officeworks here in Australia. And you can also use wool, any sort of wool that you want as any embroidery. You just have to be mindful that it is wool and it is not strong, so definitely don't use it to sew things together. But you can achieve nice little patterns and stuff like that. If you pull apart the threads here, you'll see that they are woven into smaller little sections. So if you want to thread it through an eyelet, I'd recommend weighting at the tip of it, and that way you'll have a nice little arrow point that you can thread through that larger eyelet even. But like I said, snap test, really easily to snap, so I wouldn't recommend sewing anything that requires any sort of strength with wool, but will be great for little embellishments and stuff like that. So that is it from me today, guys. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, give it a thumbs up and don't forget to subscribe. If you have any requests, you can leave it in the comments down below. You can also check me out on Instagram and Facebook at Creatures of Nat, and I'll catch you in the next one. Bye!